محمد وآل محمد.
على حب علي بن الحسين رحم الله من صلى على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل لعبادي الذين آمنوا يقيموا الصلاة وينفقوا مما رزقناهم سرا وعلانية من قبل أن يأتي يوم لا بيع فيه ولا خلال. الله الذي خلق السماوات والأرض وأنزل من السماء ماء فأخرج به من الثمرات رزقا لكم وسخر لكم الفلك لتجري في البحر بأمره وسخر لكم الأنهار وسخر لكم الشمس والقمر دائبين وسخر لكم الليل والنهار وسخر لكم الليل والنهار وآتاكم من كل ما سألتموه وإن تعدوا نعمة الله لا تحصوها إن الإنسان لظلوم كفار وإذ قال إبراهيم رب اجعل هذا البلد آمنا واجنبني وبني أن نعبد الأصنام. رب إنهن أضللن كثيرا من الناس فمن تبعني فإنه مني ومن عصاني فإنك غفور رحيم. ربنا إني أسكنت من ذريتي بواد غير ذي زرع عند بيتك المحرم ربنا ليقيموا الصلاة فاجعل أفئدة من الناس تهوي إليهم وارزقهم من الثمرات لعلهم يشكرون. ربنا إنك تعلم ما نخفي وما نعلن وما يخفى على الله من شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء. الحمد لله الحمد لله الذي وهب لي على الكبر إسماعيل وإسحاق إن ربي لسميع الدعاء. رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعائي ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين المؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. عطروا مجالسكم بذكر الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أحسن الله إليكم. الله يخليك. أسمعكم. توجهوا لزيارة وارث. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أزور سيدي ومولاي ومعتمدي ورجائي، ذخري وذخيرتي في آخرتي ودنياي، نور العينين وسيد الكونين، أبا عبد الله الحسين. السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفوة الله. السلام عليك يا وارث نوح نبي الله. السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله. السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله. السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله. السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله. السلام عليك يا وارث أمير المؤمنين ولي الله. السلام عليك يا ابن محمد المصطفى. السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء. السلام عليك يا ابن خديجة الكبرى. السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور. أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين. فلعن الله أمة قتلتك، ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك، ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأصلاب الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة، لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها، ولم تلبسك من مدلهمات ثيابها. وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين، وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرضي الزكي الهادي المهدي، وأشهد أن الأئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وأعلام الهدى والعروة الوثقى والحجة على أهل الدنيا. وأشهد الله وملائكته وأنبياءه ورسله أني بكم مؤمن وبإيابكم موقن بشرائع ديني وخواتيم عملي، وقلبي لقلبكم سلم وأمري لأمركم متبع. صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم. زيارة علي بن الحسين عليهما السلام. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا ابن نبي الله، السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا ابن الحسين الشهيد، السلام عليك أيها الشهيد وابن الشهيد، السلام عليك أيها المظلوم وابن المظلوم. لعن الله أمة قتلتك، ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك، ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. السلام عليك يا ولي الله وابن وليه، لقد عظمت المصيبة وجلت الرزية بك علينا وعلى جميع المسلمين، فلعن الله أمة قتلتك، وأبرأوا إلى الله وإليكم منهم. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. أحسن الله إليكم، الله يحفظكم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Something طيب الله فاسكم سيدنا. Inshallah we're going to start right away. I'm not going to take lots of your time. Just a quick announcement that tomorrow will be our last night with our dear Shaykh. I'm getting lots of questions about the day of Ashura on Sunday. Inshallah tomorrow we're going to announce if we will have any programs inshallah. We're still trying to figure it out. We'll let you know inshallah tomorrow. Please help me welcome our dear Shaykh with a loud salawat.
أفلح من أعاد ثانية.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
ثالثة على حب الزهراء.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل، نعم المولى ونعم النصير. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، خالق السماوات والأرض، إلها واحدا أحدا صمدا لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، خاتم النبيين، رحمة للعالمين، طه وياسين بالقاسم محمد. وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين، ورحمة الله على محبيهم، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم وقاتليهم، وغاصب حقوق حقهم ومنكر فضائلهم أجمعين من يومنا هذا إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم: إن الحسين مصباح الهدى وسفينة النجاة. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا بالحسين عليه السلام. I extend condolences to the Imam of the time, Imam Al-Hujja, to the household of the Prophet, to all of you, to all your near ones, to the Muslim Ummah, to the heavens and the earth, who also are marking the martyrdom of Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salam. We convey our condolences together to the whole household of the Prophet. My brothers, my sisters, my youngsters, my elders, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullah. We've been talking about how we can develop ourselves, how Islam has guided us, how Islam has taught us to be the best we can be, to strive towards perfection, to strive towards being the ideal abd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And to be an abd of Allah is an honor and a blessing. And so whether it is our actions or whether it is our iman, both have to be working cohesively in conjunction with each other, complementing each other. It is not appropriate for our iman to be saying or doing one thing and our actions to be doing the opposite. A Muslim will always say what he does, say what she says, and does what she says. They will do what they say, they will say what they do. They will not have their actions in one side, their iman on another, and basically a confused state is arisen. So whether it is our understanding, this is what we've tried to do in these last few discussions, whereby even our thinking, what we understand, what we comprehend, what we grasp, what our iman is an important step in us getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so our understanding during the time of the occultation of the Imam becomes a critical time for us to be able to develop ourselves, to be able to better ourselves, to basically make ourselves prepared for the Imam when he returns, so that we will be the ideal person that will be in the Imam's army. The Imam's army will not only be inclusive of men. This is one thing that whenever I've gone to have discussions and seminars and what have you on the 12th Imam, because this was one of the areas that I had tried to do my research in when I was in Qom. And so I often get surprised looks from the audience when I say that women will also be in the Imam's army. Their roles and responsibilities will be different than that of the men. That is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala naturally has put into place. There are certain things that Allah ta'ala has obligated for men. There are certain things that Islam has obligated for women. There are certain responsibilities that are to be borne by men. There are certain responsibilities that are to be borne by women. So to say that only men will be in the Imam's army when he returns is actually an incorrect and unfactual statement. And yet to say that women will be, fighting there will be some exceptions to every rule. But to say that women will be told to fight or ordered to fight, that doesn't mean that is not the definition of what the Imam's army is like. Everybody and anybody will have different responsibilities. Some of the things that we are able to answer today, when it came to the Imam, were very difficult to answer even a generation ago. The things that we see around today are giving us the ability to answer things that perhaps a generation ago or 2 generations ago to your grandparents or your great-grandparents would have been very difficult to understand. And over the last 1200 plus years, since the Imam went into occultation, there were certain things in the books of narration, and there are numerous books that have been written about the 12th Imam. An encyclopedia that has narrated a lot of the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'at hadith has been compiled decades ago by Hazrat Ayatul Uzma Shaykh Lutfullah Safi Gul Payganim. Muntakhab al-Atarfiyya Ma'ami Athani Ashar. This is actually, some volumes have been translated into English, who's written a monumental book on the 12th Imam using not only Shia but mostly Sunni references. And one of the things that we find, and anybody in the last 20 years who has written a serious book about Imam Sahib al-Amr, whether it is Ayatollah Ibrahim Amini, whether it is Sadruddin Sadr, whether there's been any of these authors who have in the last 20, 25 years written about the 12th Imam, have actually quoted from this book of Ayatollah Lutfullah Safi. And one of the things that we find is that when it comes to the 12th Imam, when it comes to Imam Mahdi, Ajjalallahu ta'ala dhuhurahu, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad salawatu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. If you were to read the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'at, the Sunni books and our books, In fact, and because I've done this, as part of my research, I've had to do this. I've read their books, I've listened to their ulama, their scholars speak. One of the things that is really unique is you will find almost identical factors, identical things in what they say about Imam Mahdi, about the return, the reappearance, but I'll just clarify that in a minute, about Imam Mahdi and everything. In fact, Imam Muhammad ibn Ismail Bukhari, in his Sahih Bukhari, quotes something that Qala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Al-Mahdi min itrati min walad al-Fatimiyah. That the Mahdi will be from amongst my children, min walad al-Fatimiyah, from amongst the children of Fatima Zahra. He is quoting this, not even a Shia writer. And so everything will be identical. The only difference between our understanding of the 12th Imam and their understanding of Imam Mahdi is that we have said that he was already born in 255 AH in Hijrah, and they say he will be born. That is the only difference you'll find. Otherwise, the belief in the Mahdi is something that is common to every Muslim. All Muslims. In fact, you cannot be a Muslim until you believe in the Mahdi, because the Prophet has talked about it. So there is not, and yet when we used to see or read or hear from the mimbar, many of the narrations about the Imam, there was some confusion. Very uniquely, it's interesting that the riwayah mentioned, the narrations from the Prophet and the A'immah alayhimus salam mentioned, and every Imam, from Amirul Mu'mineen to Imam Hassan ibn Ali al-Askari alayhimus salatu was salam, have spoken about Imam Mahdi, have spoken about the last one, had spoken about Imam al-Hujjah. Every Imam, from the first to the 11th. So it's not something that, all the Imams were trying to avoid or that. No, they would actually encourage the people. So in those narrations, one other thing, and there's a number of things which I'll come to in today's discussion, because I'll talk about how science and technology relates to the Imam. The riwayah mentions, the narrations mention that the Imam will establish his capital in the city of Kufa. And when he is in the city of Kufa, he'll be able to know what is happening in Africa. He will know what is happening in the eastern part of the Arabian Peninsula, in the western part of the Arabian Peninsula, what's happening in other, China and people had a hard time understanding this. People could not understand that how could the Imam, think of it 2 generations ago. Right now, we're in a different era. But think 2 generations ago or 3 generations ago, when your grandparents, great-grandparents, or those who were in the time of the A'immah, when they heard this and they read this and they were reading this, imagine how difficult it was. And today you see Hazrat Google Maps telling you where you're sitting here, you know exactly what is happening in Karbala Mu'alla. You're sitting here in Ottawa, and you know exactly what is happening in China. You can be sitting here in Ottawa or in Kitchener or in Toronto, and you know what is happening in the Haram of Imam Ali ibn Musa Radha right this moment. Sitting in your home, you have the whole world at your footstep. So and you can imagine that now we see this unfolding. And in today's discussion, you'll understand what our Imams had said 1,400 years ago about this. Now it's easy to understand. But just 1 generation or 2 generations ago, this would have been impossible. How could the Imam sit in Kufa and know what's happening in China? Imagine. And there were so many things like this that come about, that when the Prophet went on the ascension, on the Mi'raj, and one of the things that is encouraged, if anybody is enthusiastic and wants to, inshallah, try and meet the Imam, one of the amal, there's numerous ones, but one of the amal is on Laylatul Jum'ah, on Thursday night, before the time of Salat. According to some writers, it has been before the time of Salatul Fajr, or some have said before the time of Maghrib on Yawm al-Jum'ah. So from Thursday night, the ihtiyat is to do it on Thursday night. To recite Surah al-Mubarakah, Bani Israel, the 17th surah of the Holy Quran. 17th surah. The very first surah of the 15th chapter, 15th part, 15th para they say. The very first surah of that is Surah Mubarak Bani Israel. In that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Subhanalladhi asra bi'abdihi laylam min al-masjid al-haram ila al-masjid al-aqsa alladhi barakna hawlahu linuriyahu min ayatina innahu was-sami' al-basir. Glory be to the Lord, to the one. Subhanalladhi asra bi'abdihi. The one, glory be to him who took his abd, his servant, his slave, from Masjid al-Haram ila al-Masjid al-Aqsa alladhi barakna hawlahu linuriyahu min ayatina. who took his abd, his slave, from Masjid al-Haram to Masjid al-Aqsa to the heavens to show him the light. And the verses are very beautiful in this. If you, again, get a chance, read this first verse of that surah. It is narrated, whoever recites this surah, inshallah, if they recite it regularly on that Thursday night, they will have a meeting with Imam Sahib al-Asri wal-Akhir al-Zaman, Ajjalallahu ta'ala dhuhur. It's about 112 verses. It might take you, depending on how your proficiency and speed is in recitation of the Holy Quran, might take you maybe half an hour, 40 minutes, depending on that. So in this, Allah Ta'ala is mentioning, glory be to the one who took his slave. Imagine Allah Ta'ala is using the word abd. That's what I said at the beginning. To be an abd of Allah is an honor. It is a sharaf. It is a dignity to be called the abd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just naming yourself Abdullah is not enough. To be a true abd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what the honor and the dignity lies in. Allah Ta'ala says, he's talking about how the Prophet was taken min al-Masjid al-Haram ila al-Masjid al-Aqsa. The commentators of the Holy Quran, the mufassirin of the Holy Quran, have said that this could mean Masjid al-Aqsa, which is in Bayt al-Muqaddas, Jerusalem today, that Masjid al-Aqsa, or it is talking about Aqsa, which means the furthest, one of the masajids in the heavens. Because we are told that on the night of Mi'raj, on the night that the Prophet went on this ascension, he went from, whether it is this worldly Masjid al-Aqsa or it is the one in the heavens, he went through the various levels of paradise. He met with the Anbiya who were in the heavens. He led Salatul Jama'at in the heavens. And then he went and he saw the punishments in the hells. And there have been books written. Allama Majlis has written a book on Kitab al-Mi'raj, a section on Mi'raj. Many of the historians have written about Mi'raj and what happened. So I'm not going to go into that. I want to come to a different aspect of the Mi'raj, of the ascension. The day after this Mi'raj happened, so you can imagine for a moment, the Prophet went from one where he was living, Masjid al-Haram, because this happened in Makkah. The surah is also a Makki surah. Right? So he went from Makkah to somewhere far away, and all of this happened in the night. Subhanallah, asra bi abdihi laylam min al-masjid. Laylam is in the night. But we are told not only in the night, it took less than a night, less than an hour, less than a minute, less than a second. The entire Mi'raj, the whole Mi'raj. And so the next day, the Prophet was telling his ashab, he was there sitting, and Amirul Mu'mineen was beside him, the few companions that were there. He was telling them, he said, I went on the Mi'raj last night. I went on the Mi'raj, and he tells Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, he says, Ya Ali, do you want to narrate Mi'raj or shall I narrate Mi'raj? One salawat upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. Before I go any further, now that I've got, inshallah, a little bit of your attention, remember I always tell you in these nights, Control S, right? We'll come to Control V after Control S. Hold this thought. Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam has said, our Shia, our followers, those who believe in us, they will believe in three things. Without those three, you're still a Muslim. There's no doubt in your Islam, but you will not have reached that level of being a Shia of Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad or a Shia of the Ahlul Bayt. The Imam says, first thing is the belief in the questioning of Munkar and Nakir in the Qabr. That in the grave you will be questioned, you will be woken up when we go down there, and they will ask us questions. The two angels will ask us questions about Aqidah, various things. He said, that you believe in, you will be our Shia. He said the second thing that our Shia will believe in is in Shafa'at, intercession. That in case on the day of judgment, we are going, our left side is a little heavier, the bad deeds are a little heavier. We are about to be taken into Jahannam. May Allah protect us. We're about to be taken to Jahannam. One of the Ahlul Bayt, inshallah, one of the family members of Rasulullah, maybe one of the ulama, one of the maraja, one of the mujtahideen, maybe another mu'min, inshallah, one of you will say that, no, we know Brother Shafiq, let us do his shafa'at, let's take it. The belief in the shafa'at is there. And so our Shia will believe in Shafa'at. But Ayatollah Shaheed Dasta Ghaib in his book Greater Sins, he mentions, he says, don't take Shafa'at as a license to sin. It's not a license to sin. Shafa'at is at the last, you tried your best, you did whatever you could, and this gives us so much hope. You tried your best, and you still failed, then you will be saved. And Imam Sadiq alayhi salam mentions, he said that remember one thing, we will do your shafa'at on Yawm al-Qiyamah, but you still have the aqibat to go through. From the time you're in your grave, till the time the day of judgment comes, till the time that all of those difficulties, challenges, the sun being very close to us, we're being in severe heat, we'll be standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on Yawm al-Qiyamah. All of that you still have to go through. Then we will do your shafaat. That's after all of that. So don't think that it's a license to sin. Oh, okay, I can commit all the sins and I know that inshallah I'll be. No, it's not like that. So the Imam says that, our Shia will believe in this. The third thing, Mawla, what does the Shia believe in? The Prophet replied that our true Shia will believe in the physical ascension, the physical mi'raj of Rasulullah. Physical. Mawla, what difference does it make to you what I believe? Belief is in the heart. What difference does it make to you whether I believe something or not, Mawla? This will come later. And so, you look at what happened when the Prophet was saying that I went on Mi'raj, I did this, I did that. As it is, the Muslims were a minority, right? Very few of them in Makkah. You know that. And on top of that, they were being humiliated, they were being boycotted, there was all kinds of difficulties and attacks and challenges. So it was a very difficult time. So for the Muslims to tell anybody and even hear this was difficult. And till today, al-yawm, most of the Muslims, a majority of the Muslims, believe that the Mi'raj was just a dream. The Prophet just saw a dream. It was not physical. It was a spiritual journey that the Prophet went on. You can imagine for a moment that, somebody like me, he's here. Today in the morning, I tell Brother Kareem, I need to go to Kitchener, please. Is it okay? He'll probably faint or have a heart attack, right? He says, you realize our program is at 6:15, right? Yeah, I'll just go to Kitchener and come back. And after a couple of hours, I'm in my room, I close the door. And after I come back and I tell him, I said, okay, I dreamt I went to Kitchener and came back. So what do you mean? I said, I dreamt. Oh, okay, thank you, alhamdulillah. Thank you. You can have whatever dream you want. Please, Shaykh. But just don't try and do it because it's going to take you 6 hours to get there. I don't know what you need to do over there. But even if you're just to do a fast turnaround, 12 hours, you're telling me at 10 a.m. that you want to go to Kitchener. You're not going to be back till 10 o'clock at night, minimum. Sahih? Now, if I say I dreamt it, no problem, that's okay. Now, the Prophet is telling this. How can you believe it? We're living here in Ottawa, right? Have any of you been on an airplane? You have? Okay. Most of you have not even responded, so. Oh, okay, just one person has been on an airplane. 2 people, sorry. Okay. If I was to ask you the distance between here and, let's say, for example, London, England, just to make it a simple equation. How many kilometers is it? Uh-oh. Huh? 3,000. Well, kilometers is about close to 5,000. Miles is 3, because that's how many points you get on aeroplane or whatever, right? It's 3,500 aeroplane miles or whatever, okay? So it's about 3,500, give or take, okay? In that neighborhood. Now, 150 years ago, if you wanted to go to England, London, what would you have to do? How long would it take? You would take a horse and buggy to go to Halifax or Newfoundland or somewhere that is the East Coast. And then you take a boat that will cross the Atlantic and get you to the to the British shore. Make sure you don't take the Titanic, huh? You take a big boat and even small boats, they were reliable. Okay, they made it over. So the journey from here to the might take you a couple of, maybe 2 weeks to get to the east coast of Canada. And then maybe 3 months or 2 months to cross the Atlantic. You get over to the coast of England, and then to get to London would take you maybe another 4 or 5 days. Total journey about 3 months, give or take, 150 years ago, before the trains and all that. And then, the Industrial Revolution took place. The Industrial Revolution took place, and all of a sudden that journey that would have taken 3 months, now you can go by train, and it's a lot faster, and the boats became faster, and instead of 3 months, you could probably do it in a month and a half. And then, mashallah, we saw the era of these flying contraptions, these flying machines. And sadly, the Wright brothers get the credit for this, huh? The Wright brothers are told, they were the ones who discovered and invented the aircraft. There's a certain habit in certain communities. And if we look around us today, till today, they say that who discovered America? Columbus discovered America. So, we'll call it Washington, D.C., District of Columbus, or District of Columbia. You've got, the Columbus, Ohio. You've got Columbus, there's Columbus University, Columbus. Why? Because he discovered America. If I was to come on the third night or the fourth night of Muharram, and I said, guess what, my dear sisters and brothers, I discovered Kanata. Why are you laughing? You say, Brother Shafiq, either that drive from Kitchener to Ottawa has taken a lot out of you, or you're losing it. It's already been discovered, brother. We already know it. There's inhabitants there and everything. Allahu Akbar. Columbus did not discover anything. The guy himself was lost. He came and he butchered the indigenous people. He himself was lost. He thought it was in India. That's why he called them Indians. But they take credit for it. They take credit for the airplane, the Wright brothers, because they were Americans. So, they want to have the credit of discovering everything and doing everything and having the access to everything and, being the world's policeman and what have you. Sometimes it gets frustrating. Abbas ibn Firnas was probably the first one who actually saw, people for thousands of years have been looking at the birds flying and would say, we wish we could fly. So, the airplane was discovered. And I think Baghdad airport is named after him. So, actually, one of the things that I've told you a couple of nights ago, that as Muslims, we need to be appreciative of who we are. We need to be proud, not proud in an arrogant or takabbur way, but we need to be proud in a humble way that we have got a beautiful, scientifically advanced history. And much of that history, much of that advancement, much of that science and technology has come as a result of the teachings of Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. In fact, a group of scientists from Europe, based in Belgium, France, Germany, and a few other places, they actually wrote a book. They don't believe in him to be Imam, but they wrote a book, the great philosopher and scientist Ja'far ibn Muhammad. They don't believe in him being Masoom, him being an Imam, nothing. But they wrote this book. It's actually available online as well now. If you type it in, the great philosopher or great scientist Ja'far ibn Muhammad, you'll see a lot of his teachings. And a lot of things that the Imam talks about, these non-Muslims, these scientists have actually compiled these works. One of the beauties in that I just wanted to share with you, it's a beautiful book. If you get a chance to read it, you'll be truly fascinated. He says that based on their conclusion, this was their conclusion, they said that we know that Ja'far ibn Muhammad was able to basically separate the hydrogen from the oxygen in water. He had the ability, he knew. He could have taught his students that the way he taught them so many other things. But they're writing this, okay? He says, but he didn't. And their conclusion is that the only reason we can conclude that Ja'far ibn Muhammad didn't teach his students how to separate the hydrogen from the oxygen in water and other deeper sciences was that had people known it at that time, they would have created the hydrogen bomb years earlier. So he said, perhaps that is the reason he didn't want to create the bomb, or he didn't want anyone to create the bomb. That could be one of the reasons that they are mentioning that Imam Ja'far alayhi salam did not teach them. So, people want to take credit. And, sometimes we become apologetic. As Muslims, we sometimes become apologetic. Oh my God, my name is Muhammad. They might not be able to pronounce it. Just call me Mo. My name is Kumail. Just call me Q. We become very apologetic. After 9/11 had happened, September 11, 2001, Muslims became so apologetic. I saw them shaving off their beards, and then they would try and call me. By the way, I shaved off my beard because I was scared. Oh, okay, really? Okay. I mean, Sikhs have beards, others have beards. In France and Italy, it's a style to have different style beards. Okay, fine. Ladies would call, we have taken off our hijab. We didn't want to be seen as Muslim. We didn't want to be, we became apologetic. And somebody would ask you, are you Muslim? Yeah, but we're not those Muslims. We're not those Muslims. We become apologetic. Why? Be proud of who you are. You have an identity. If they don't understand it, that is their problem. That is their illiteracy and ignorance, not yours. Don't hide your faith. Our faith is sublime. Our faith doesn't teach us to do anything wrong. And so we don't need to be apologetic. Yes, we are Muslims, but these guys are not Muslims who do any of these acts of terrorism anywhere in the world. We true Muslims cannot and will not and never will do such things. Here we've digressed a bit, but coming back to what I'm saying, the airplane was there. So now all of a sudden, if I wanted to go from Ottawa to London, England, what was taking 3 months, a month and a half, as the airplane, the early airplanes used to have to stop for refueling and all that, so they could do it in about 12 hours from Ottawa to London, England. Wow, 12 hours, from 3 months down to 12 hours. Those of you who might have been, well, none of you might have been around in the 70s, but you will remember that there was an airplane called the Concorde. You can study it, you can research it. And my elders will remember this. It's marhum now. You can pray Fatiha afterwards for it. Passed away. Marhum, the Concorde. It would take you from Ottawa to London in 3.5 hours. 3.5 hours. It would take you from London. You could go from Toronto to London, New York to London, 3.5 hours. The ones that made it, most of them crashed, right? Some of them. So you can see now what I wanted to say was that the journey that once upon a time took 3 months, then 1 month and a half, and then 12 hours, and then 3.5 hours. And my question to the mu'mineen in front of me today, to the youngsters who are all, intellectuals and smart people, mashallah, can you see a day coming when the journey from Ottawa to London can be even faster than 3.5 months, 3.5 hours? You will say, of course we can see that day coming, because things are getting faster and faster. They say the world is getting smaller and smaller. The point is that the distance between these two cities, has it changed? The 3,400 miles or so are still there. The 5,000 kilometers is still there. But the mode of transportation has changed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given Bani Adam, has given us the intellectualization ability to create these things that can make things go faster and faster. If we as insan, who are the makhluk of Allah, the creation of Allah, can make such things, then imagine Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is the Khaliq, who wants to take his abd on this journey in a matter of a second, millions of miles, maybe trillions of miles. This is the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the abd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. An important part of that thing, of that technological advancement that today we can see unfolding, that was done at the time of the Prophet, because the people at that time may not have understood it. But today we can understand that these journeys can be done faster and faster and faster. A time might come when they'll say, beam me, and you can be in London in a matter of seconds. We are insan. If we can create this, imagine Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So remember, the Imam says, believe in it, because you will see a day coming. And so when we are told that the 12th Imam will have access to technology, and he will have access to that technology at his disposal, the true Shia who have already gone and believed that this is possible, they will have an easier time with the Imam, as opposed to those who say that we have to be apologetic. We can't believe in physical Mi'raj. The Prophet dreamt Mi'raj. The Prophet just went on a spiritual journey. It was not a physical journey. Imam Sadiq told us to believe in the physical journey. Believe that the Prophet went up. So one group of people who couldn't believe in Mi'raj at the time of Rasulullah, they said that it was physically impossible. Could not be done. It was mushkil. It was impossible. La mumkin. And so one group was them. There was another group who didn't believe in the Mi'raj of the Prophet. There was another group. And this was the group who had an allergy to Ali ibn Abi Talib. They were allergic to Ali ibn Abi Talib. What does that mean? Well, because when the Prophet said that, Ya Ali, would you like to narrate Mi'raj, or should I narrate Mi'raj? So some of them were whispering that, wait a minute, Prophet says he went on Mi'raj, he went on this ascension. Why is he asking Ali to narrate it? So there was this allergy to Ali, and they just didn't want Ali to have any importance. And so some of our youngsters also say that, yeah, but we're a bit uncomfortable about this. We're giving too much importance to Ali. Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah. Let's look at it from a scientific point of view. Let's look at it, because that's what our topic of discussion tonight will be, inshallah. Have you seen the space shuttle going up? Challenger, or whichever ones don't blow, huh? I forget some of their names. One was Challenger. They fly, they go up, and they do an orbit around the Earth, and they do this. So much, excitement is there whenever it's taking place. If you see on the plane, it's a beautiful scene. They have posters and pictures of this going up. And if you've ever seen it on the internet or on television or anywhere, you'll see it's a very beautiful thing. So the space shuttle is going up, and it's doing an orbit around the Earth. Does anyone want to guess or check where does the shuttle go up from? There's a special place where the shuttle is actually launched from. A place called, it's on the east coast of the US, southeast coast. It's called Cape Canaveral in the USA, southern part of the States, Florida. It goes up from there. And when it goes up from there, there's a place that is monitoring what is happening in that space shuttle, in the shuttle. And that place is somewhere else. It's a place called Houston. It's called MCA Mission Control. So whatever is happening in the shuttle, Mission Control is actually be able to see exactly what is happening in there. So much so that if one of the astronauts in the shuttle burps, they can actually hear it in Houston, Mission Control. They know exactly what the temperature is. They know exactly what's happening in their down Mission Control. And it's thousands and thousands of kilometers away. So when I was studying this, because another interest I had during my teenage years was I wanted to be an astronomer. I loved the study of space, and not astrologer, don't get confused please, astronomer, astronomy, okay? And the study of space, study of the stars, study of the moon and the sun and the various galaxies and the various planets and the various solar systems, very interesting for me. And so when I used to watch this, the shuttles and all that, I used to try and see that, okay, Mission Control is here, they're monitoring, you can hear everything, and I was looking for a wire that went from Mission Control to the shuttle. And the youngsters would start laughing at me, and I would talk to them, and they say, Shaykh, you don't understand. And they would ask me, your wife's name is not Hawa, is it? Like, you're from way back? I said, what do you mean? He says, there's no rope, there's no wire, there's no physical connection. I said, well, then how do these guys here know what's going on? They said that there's all these beams, these rays are being transmitted, these satellite, communication methods and all that. Do any of you have a cell phone here? Okay. Just go ask your parents or your grandparents if they're around, if they're alive, inshallah. If they are alive, may Allah keep them protected and safe and secure and healthy. If they've passed away, then sorry, you won't be able to. But if you ask them, how were telephones before? They'll tell you that they were corded telephones. You had to wait for a long time before you could make the connections and all that. And I remember that, these corded telephones were when the first cordless telephones came out and the range was only about 50 meters or 50 feet, not even 50 meters. We were fascinated. And now you can go hundreds of meters and this all that. And it was all wired, now it's wireless. And so I didn't understand that they say that there are beams, there are light rays, and I still didn't understand. And they told me that this is light rays that are going from Mission Control to the shuttle, and that's what the cell phones are based on. That's what all this technology is based on. And I didn't understand. I said, can you please translate the word light into Arabic for me? Thank you, a little louder. Noor. Now I understand something. That when the Prophet of Islam, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم, أول ما خلق الله نوري, the very first thing the Holy Prophet of Islam says, the very first thing Allah Jalla Jalaluhu created was the light of Muhammad صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. أنا وعلي من نور واحد. Me and Ali are from the same light. Now I understand. One part of the light was at Mi'raj. One part of the light was at Mission Control. Muhammad was up there. Ali was here. They knew exactly what each other was doing wherever they are.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أول ما خلق الله نوري. First thing Allah created was my light. أنا وعلي من نور واحد. Me and Ali are from the same light. Now I understand why there was no difference in what was happening there and what is happening here. Ali didn't go on Mi'raj, but the spirit of Ali was with the Holy Prophet of Islam. Wherever the Prophet went, Ali alayhi salam was there. Wherever Ali was, the Prophet of Islam sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was there. One salawat upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. You're doubting the prestige of Ali ibn Abi Talib. زَيِّنُوا مَجَالِسِكُمْ بِذِكْرِ عَلِي ibn Abi Talib. Enliven your majalis with the remembrance of Ali ibn Abi Talib. You'll get spirit, you'll get bravery in your heart, inshallah. You'll find determination that somebody who was that close to the Holy Prophet of Islam and yet would say that my Mawla is Rasulullah. He is the Mawla, he is the Master. Allahu Akbar. I asked you a few minutes ago, you've been on an airplane. You said, two of you said yes. What do you see in an airplane when you go? Have any of you fought, any of the youngsters, if you do go on a trip, even a short trip, what seat do you like the best? Mashallah, complete unanimity. But when you get to my age, you want the aisle seat. You understand exactly. You need to run to the bathroom, you want the aisle seat. But while I was young, Baba, Papa, I want the seat, I know the window seat. Me and my sister would quarrel, I want the window seat. No, I want the window seat. Okay, then my mom had to make a decision, okay, you get it on the way going. Window seat, think about it. At 32,000 feet, what are you going to see anyways except clouds? But I want the window seat. You look outside when the plane is on the ground, You look outside, what do you see? You see the runway, you see the tarmac. Don't ever get the wing part. Nowadays, when you're booking a flight, they tell you this is the wing because people complain so much that don't get that. Go either in front of the wing or behind. You look outside, you see what? The tarmac. Achha. Then the pilot announces. What does the pilot announce? Okay, fasten your seatbelt. The flight attendants will tell you, you have to do this in case of oxygen level. First put on your own mask, then put on. Allahu Akbar. It's fascinating. As a parent, I would feel guilty putting on my mask before putting on my child's mask. Parents will be able to tell you this, but they tell you must do this. Because if you don't, you might both die, suffocate. So put on yours, at least you save yourself, and then help your child. Ya ayyuhan nas, O mankind, ku anfusikum wa ahlikum minan nar. O mankind, protect yourselves and your families from the fire of Jahannam. It's reminding you, protect yourself and your family. Not that don't leave your family, but just make sure you yourself are on the right track before you tell somebody else to go on the right track. Then they tell you all of this, and then they say, okay, we're ready to take off, ready to take off. Now, once you're looking outside still, because you've all told me you're on the one to say, I'm taking you on a journey today, all right? If you want to close your eyes, you can, but please don't fall asleep. You want to close your eyes, and you can imagine you're with me on the airplane. The pilot is about to take off. Now you'll open your eyes because you want to see outside. After, 2,000 feet, 3,000 feet, what will you see? Not only the runway, the tarmac, you'll see the whole airport. When you go at about 6,000 feet, you'll see much of Ottawa. When you go to 10,000 feet, you'll see the whole city of Ottawa. When you go to 12,000 feet, you'll see a good chunk of Ontario and probably Quebec as well. Now, at that time, when you're at 10,000 feet or 12,000 feet, and I ask, Haj Ahmad, can you please show me your house? I tell Brother Mehdi, I say, can you please show me your car? You'll say, I can't. You can't see it. You're too high up. It's too tiny. It's too tiny. You can't see it. And the higher you go, you see more and more of Ontario, but these little things you don't see. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. That means that when the Prophet went on Mi'raj, we wish that we could have gone as well. Until today, we wish we could go at these heights. And we always enjoy the airplane rides because we go on heights. Well, qala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The Holy Prophet of Islam said that every single day, every one of you sitting here, 5 times a day, as-salatu mi'rajul mu'min. For the believer, the salat, the prayer, is the mi'raj of the believer. It's the ascension. You're going higher and higher. The same way you're in an airplane and you're going higher and higher. When you look outside, you see little things less and less. The higher you go, the bigger picture you see. But my dear brothers and sisters, Islam is reminding us that the higher you go spiritually, the less these little things will matter. Who fought with me? Who has grudges with me? Who is black? Who is white? Who is rich? Who is poor? All of that will be irrelevant because you are at a height closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not on these peddly things. These little things won't matter to you anymore. Who said salam to me, who didn't, who was rude to me, who was mean to me, who is rich, who is poor, who is my friend, who is my enemy. All of that will be irrelevant. Everybody will be seen in the bigger picture as the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Little things won't matter to you because you're going higher and higher. While we're in this ground, on the floor, then these things matter. You are this, you are that, I am this, I am that. All these complexes disappear because you're going higher. You're getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imagine the beautiful lesson Islam gave us on how to reach the heights that we've been talking about. And with the sadaqah, with the blessing and grace of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, we are inshallah able to have the strength to leave these little things and go closer towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and leave the peddly things behind. One salawat upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. How this era we're living in, we should be so grateful that so many issues are answered for us, so many dilemmas that a generation or two ago could not be understood, could not be figured out, could be very confusing to the people. Can you imagine the last 1,000 years when people heard any of these ahadith and riwayah? They would not have been able to understand. Until today, when you look at how Islam has taught us and guided us, and so whether we understand it or not, if we follow it, then inshallah we will get the full benefit from Islam. And when you look at how, people used to often wonder that, the ulama have talked about, in fact, I'll be mentioning this tomorrow as well, but I'm giving a little foreshadowing. We have been told that one of the things that we should do to keep our relationship with the 12th Imam is to write an arida, a letter to the Imam. And regularly we should do this, not just some of the traditional communities, they do this only on the 15th of Sha'ban. On Nisf Sha'ban, they do their arida, they write a letter to the Imam, and they do that. We are told to write the letter anytime. And I'll tell you from personal experiences, whenever I've had a challenge, whenever there's been some confusion in front of me, and I wasn't able to decide what to do, I would sit and write an actual letter to the Imam, tell him what I'm feeling, tell him what I'm going through, and put the letter in a running body of water or bury it in the ground, whichever was easier for me. And I've had youngsters and, with not challenges, but sometimes out of just general curiosity. They say, Shaikh, you're telling us to write a letter to the Imam, and then what do? Yeah, you bury it in your backyard with your plants or your trees or anything. You bury it, or if you have a body of water that is flowing and you're not going to commit any illegal act that is against the law or anything, because I don't encourage people to do that, then you can do it. And that's it. But they tell me, they say, you know what? I did that. I wrote a letter. 2 days later, I dug up the place where the letter was still there. The Imam didn't take it. The mailman didn't come and... Hold on. Very confusing, isn't it? And I couldn't, and I'm sure that the ulama in the past generations had a hard time explaining this. The letter is right there, Shaykh, Sayyid. The letter is right there. And you're telling me Imam has received it? Come on, who are you trying to fool, man? Huh? Who are you kidding? Yeah, terminology, who are you jiving? Once upon a time, when I was young, when you're in school, people were, if they called you wicked, that's an insult. That's, it was horrendous if somebody called you wicked. Now, it's only the cool people. Hey, you're wicked. You see how things change, eh? Or terminology. I mean, if somebody calls me wicked today, I'm not sure how I would respond. It hasn't happened to me in a little while. Okay, please don't try it though. And so basically what we see is that the letter is there now. Explain to me what happened. And it was hard to explain until I, started traveling a bit, and technology was reaching a point whereby if I needed to, and it actually happened today, I had to send something to, my dear brother Kareem, and I said, okay, can you do this? And so I'm sitting at my computer, I'm able to send something to him, but if I was in another country, or if I was in another continent, and oftentimes I've been in East Africa, and I've had to send a paper, you have to sign some documents, sometimes the urgent papers have to be signed and sent back. And so, I remember still the days of what was this machine that had come out. I don't know if you remember that machine. Some of you, thank you. You heard that, right? It was called a fax machine. What is that? And I gave them the paper to sign, and I told my host family, can you please make sure that this gets to Kitchener and to Canada? Okay, they say, yeah. 2 minutes later, they come and give me the original back. I said, what are you doing? I said, I need this in Canada. They said, it's already in Canada. What do you mean? He said, it's already reached Canada. I don't understand. You gave me the letter. The letter's here. They said, yes, but that letter has already reached Canada. You have the original with you. Now I understand that we've reached a point where I can have a copy sent to where I want to go and still have the original with me. Now I understand. Scanners will even give the exact color, the exact tone, the exact signature, the exact blue ink, and it'll get to wherever I want to go, thousands of miles away, anywhere in the world, and the original is still with me. Now I understand. Will I write a letter to my Imam? The original is with me, but the Imam has already receive what he needs to receive. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. We have countless examples like this. This is just a little bit of the skimming of the iceberg that I wanted to share with the believers tonight. That there is so many things that Islam had invited us for, had already informed us of. Some things were not understood at the time. There is a hadith, and I just wanted to, because today, Friday, was the day that we are told that, you should clip our nails. If, those who want to, inshallah, be safe from illnesses. On Friday, if you cut your nails, you trim your nails, inshallah, Friday, that'll be saving you from illnesses. On Thursday, if you want to increase your rizq, you're told to, encouraged to trim your nails, to trim your beard, and whatever have you. And there is a hadith of the Holy Prophet that says, trim your mustache. For this applies for the men, not the sisters. Trim your mustache. Don't let your mustache go over your lips, because shaitan comes and sits there. And I've actually had, sometimes we take things literally. I've had people come and say, I was looking carefully, but I didn't say shaitan there. In Islam, the Prophet had, and of course Allah Ta'ala had ordered him to do it this way, there are certain terminologies that we have to look at above and beyond what is the literal. There could be a symbolic meaning. What does shaitan mean? It means some evil or some harm. And scientists today, Sociologists, those who study the body, the facial hairs, the bodily hairs, they'll tell you that all the hair that we have got minute sized bacteria. And one of the things is, especially on, in your facial, because you're constantly, surrounded by all kinds of bacterial interactions and bacterial infections possibilities. And that's why, these masks have been, interesting, because hopefully they're supposed to protect us to some degree, inshallah, Allahu alam. And so when the Prophet said that, it didn't literally mean that there's a little shaitan coming there and sitting there and trying to misguide your hair, your facial hairs, but he was saying that there is some harm there. So keep it trim, because if your mustache is long and goes all the way to your chin, and you drink a glass of water, that hairy water will go inside your body. Those bacteria can go inside your stomach and they'll cause you harm. They might cause you illnesses, or they might give you some effect. So the Prophet was explaining in a way that people could understand that we're telling you to do this because shaitan doesn't mean that shaitan, Iblis shaitan. Shaitan means a harm. Something difficult for you. You're told to make sure that if you're, one of the things is in your long nails, if you keep nails too long, there might be food or there might be things that are inside. And the Prophet, there's a shaitan there. That doesn't mean that shaitan, Iblis. It means that there might be something harmful. So keep it clean, keep it trimmed, keep it neat. It's recommended. Ladies are encouraged to have slightly longer nails. Men are supposed to try and go as close to the skin as possible. So Islam gave us a whole criteria that was perhaps not understood by the people over these last 1400 years, but as human science developed, as human knowledge went on and increased, we now understand the benefits of these injunctions that Islam gave us. One salawat upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. So this is the contribution that Islam made. One of the topics that I had wanted to, but inshallah, if Allah gives me a life another time, I'm not trying to get myself invited here, please don't get the wrong idea. But on another trip, if we ever talked about, or if you want to go on the internet and see Muslim contributions to human science, it's a phenomenal, it'll make you proud of being a Muslim. The very first eye operation, the very first heart treatments, the very first maps, the very first, mathematical instruments. In fact, any of the, algebra. Many of these things have come from Islam, have come from Muslims. The whole numeric system, 0 to 9, came from Muslims. This was our contribution to the world, our contribution to the Western and the Eastern worlds, because they were using Roman numerals. I, V, V. You know what those are, right? I'm not talking Greek, am I? Thank you. I'm not talking Greek, am I? Okay. So all of this has been Muslim contributions, and there's a whole host of them. A whole host of coffee was also developed by us. Explored and based. I don't want to say invented, but it was actually first was Muslims who had engaged in coffee, and it helped out because we used to do ibadat all night. We used to do, ibadat and stay up, especially the month of Ramadan. Coffee helps us with that. And so, these are all contributions that we had made, and then the Western world likes to take credit for everything. Khair, that's a different topic altogether. But this is what we are reminded, that as Muslims, we have got a dynamic history. We need to revisit that, because one of the things that we have done with our own actions and hands is that I don't want to say the word lost it, we became negligent. We became somewhat having a superiority and negligent that, we took it for granted. And one of the things Islam reminds us, never take anything for granted. Constantly be in a state of struggle. Constantly be in a state of seeking out knowledge. And that's what you've heard in the past discussions about the importance of knowledge and ongoing. Utlubul ilma min al-mahad ila al-lahad. From the cradle to the grave. Wherever it is. Whatever knowledge. You've already heard it, I don't want to repeat it. And so this is what Islam's contribution has been. The month of Muharram, we remind ourselves of who we are. Khalil Gibran, in one of his books, In Sand and Foam, he said, the only time that I was stunned into silence was when someone asked me, who are you? Very deep question. Somebody was to ask you, who are you? You tell your name, your full name, your last name, first name. But really we need to go deeper and ask ourselves, who are we? Who are we? Do we really follow Allah? Do we really believe in Allah? Do we have that certainty? Are we really followers of Muhammad Rasulullah and Ali Waliullah? If we were in Karbala, would we have been on the side of Abu Abdullah? Because between tonight and tomorrow, I just want to remind myself, on the one side you had Abu Abdullah, who with his whole family, friends, companions, near ones and dear ones and servants, We're all doing the ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, praising Allah, the dhikr of Quran, the salat, the tasbihat. And on the other side, on Umar Sa'ad's side, there was dancing girls, music, lots of food and drink. Haram and halal was there. If I'm used to listening to the haram music all the time, where would I have been on the day of Ashura, on the night of Ashura, in the month of Muharram? If I'm used to looking at ghayr mahram, members of the opposite gender, with lust, and I'm just enjoying that, where would I have been if I was in Karbala? A question that we need to answer when somebody asks us, who are you? Who am I? Would we have really been with Abu Abdullah? فَيَا لَيْتَنِي كُنْتُ مَعَكُمْ فَأَفُوزَ مَعَكُمْ. We wish we were in Karbala. Yes, we all wish we were in Karbala. But would we have been on the right side in Karbala? Young and old, near and dear, were all giving their lives for the sake of Abu Abdullah, but very few of them. See how few there were. وَأَكْثَرُ النَّاسَ لَكَفُورًا. Majority of mankind will not believe. And that we have seen throughout history. The lives of the Anbiya, the lives of the Aimma. Majority will not believe. Let us make sure that we are at a point where we would have been with that minority, with Abu Abdullah alayhi salam. You know, everybody was coming one by one to lay down their lives. It was interesting to note that why was the one son of Abu Abdullah so late in coming? Historians have answered this in a beautiful way. Whenever Ali Akbar would come to the camp of the Imam to ask for permission, either Zainab or Kulthum or somebody, Farwa, or somebody would send another child, another youngster, another person to go and ask permission so that Ali Akbar would go. Ali Akbar was the one who resembled the Prophet so much that when the Imam announced that he was leaving the city of Medina, a number of people came to the Imam and they said, Ya Abu Abdullah, we know that you have to go. We know that you've made a promise to your grandfather. We know that you must go and you have to take this journey. But Mawla, please leave Ali Akbar behind. Imam says, why? He said, because he resembles the Holy Prophet so much. Whenever we miss Rasulullah, we used to come and look at Ali Akbar. In fact, many people sometimes would just out of the blue come to the house of Abu Abdullah. They would knock the door. They would say, can we please see Ali Akbar? Can Ali Akbar please come out? And they would just look at Ali Akbar and say, Assalamu alayka ya Rasulullah. So finally the time came when Imam Ali Akbar came to the Imam, because every time he would come, somebody would intercept him. Somebody would block him. Somebody would... Finally, the Imam receives Ali Akbar. The Imam Ali Akbar is asking for permission. Imam Hussein says, Ali Akbar, you were brought up mostly by your aunt Zainab. Go and ask her. If she gives you permission, then my permission is also there, Bismillah. He goes to his aunt Zainab because his aunt Zainab was his guardian and caretaker. Many historians have said that Layla, the mother of Ali Akbar, actually was not present in Karbala, was not alive in Karbala. And he goes to Hazrat Zainab. As he enters the camp of the tent of Hazrat Zainab, Zainab puts her head down and says, Ali Akbar, I know why you have come. I know what you have come for. I sent my own and Muhammad so that this moment would not come. Finally, he asks her for permission. She gives the permission. He comes back to the Imam happily. He says, my aunt Zainab has given permission. Imam Hussein says, okay, then I give you permission. Imam takes his own amama, puts it on Ali Akbar. He helps Ali Akbar go on the horse and he bids him farewell. And he says, Ma'as-salam, may the Prophet and your grandfather Ali be with you.
Ali Akbar rode his horse toward the battlefield, saying, أنا علي بن الحسين بن علي نحن ورب البيت أولى بالنبي تالله لا يحكم فينا ابن الدعي أضرب بالسيف أحامي عن أبي ضرب غلام هاشمي قرشي. I am Ali, son of Hussein, son of Ali. We by the house Lord are more worthy of the Nabi. By Allah, we shall never be ruled by the da'i. With the sword shall I defend my family and strike like a young Hashimi Qarashi. He kept charging at their right and left wings, diving in their midst. When a brave man faced him, he would kill him. He killed a total of 120 men. Thirst took its toll on him. So he returned to his father saying, أباه العطش قد قتلني وثقل الحديد قد أجهدني فهل إلي شربة ماء من سبيل أتقوى بها على أعدائي. Oh Father, the thirst is killing me, and the weight of the armor tired me. Is there a sip of water, oh my father, oh Hussein? Imam Hussein tells him, be patient. Your thirst will be quenched by your grandfather, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. Ali al-Akbar heads back to the battlefield, but the Imam stops him and tells him, go see your mother, Ya Ali al-Akbar. Ya Rad Yusuf ala Yaqub. يا رايد يوسف إلى يعقوب رد لي ولدي علي. Oh Allah, you brought Yusuf to Yaqub. Bring back my son Ali to me one last time. Ali al-Akbar heads to the camp. His mother opens her eyes. She sees him. He tells her, I will make you proud in front of my grandmother Fatima. Then he goes back to the battlefield. The enemy surrounds him. Arrows fall on him like rain. One of the arrows pierced his holy chest. Another man of the enemy hit him with the sword on his head. Ali al-Akbar fell, hugging his horse's head. The blood from his head covered the face of the horse. The horse cannot see where it's going anymore. Instead of taking him back to the camp, he took him to the enemy's camp. At that moment, the enemies kept stabbing him with their swords, one after the other, again and again. He yelled out, Abba Hussein, عليك مني السلام. هذا جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله قد سقاني بكأسه الأوفى شربة لا أظمأ بعدها أبدا. Imam Hussein rushed to Ali al-Akbar. After some time, the cloud of dust dissipated. Al-Hussein alayhi salam was seen sitting beside Ali al-Akbar, examining his body. Waladi Ali على الدنيا بعدك العفا. It is difficult on your father to see you in such a state, oh Ali. Then his soul departs on the chest of Imam Hussein. رحم الله من نادى وعليا وحسينا قعد عنده وشافه مغمض العين بدم سابح متر بالخدين متواصل ضرب والراس نصين، حنا ظهر على بنيه وتحسر. شو يقول له الحسين؟ يقول له يا ابويا قول من هو اللي ضرب راسك يا نور العين، من خمد انفاسك يا ابويا، من نهب درعك وطاسك يا روح شلون اشوفك معفر، يا روح شلون اشوفك معفر. شنو بعد يقول له؟ يقول له يا ابويا من عدل راسك ورجليك، ومن غمض عيونك واسبل ايديك يا نور العين، كل سيف الوصل ليك قطع قلبي والعند حشاي سدار، قطع قلبي والعند حشاي سدار. شلون حالة الإمام؟ هو فوقه، هو فوقه وحط خده على خده، وصدره فوق صدره وزاد وجده، شم وصايح عمرك هذا حده يا نور العين يا ولدي يا الأكبر. المصيبة اللي صرت منها بحيرة أشوف جروح من جسمك كثيرة يا ابويا، محنتي بفقدك كبيرة، وبعد كل ما أعاين ليك تكبر، وبعد كل ما أعاين ليك تكبر. علي راح يا زينب قومي سنديني، علي راح تعالي وعاينيني نشد الجراح، علي راح يا زينب قومي سنديني، علي راح تعالي وعاونيني نشد الجراح، أشيل شلون لما أخاف تموت يمه، أخاف تموت يمه، علي راح وياي، علي راح يا زينب قومي سنديني، علي راح تعالي وعاونيني نشد الجراح، أشيل شلون لما أخاف تموت يمه، أخاف تموت يمه، علي راح تعالي يا اختي يا زينب تعالي، انقطع راس الولد يا اختي قبالي، تعالي وعاونيني وهذا حالي، انكتب قدامي تتذبح عيالي، علي راح يا زينب قومي سنديني، علي راح تعالي وعاونيني نشد الجراح. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين.
طيبوا أفواهكم بالصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Allah, accept this amal as azab from us, Ya Allah, for the sake of Abdullah. Allah, forgive our sins. Forgive us the tawfiq to remain away from sins in our lives, Ya Allah. Give us the ability and the tawfiq to act on the teachings of the Quran and Majid and the Ahlul Bayt. Ya Allah, those who are ill, grant them shifa kamila from their illnesses. Those who are in debt, help them fulfill their debts. Those who are in need, Ya Allah, fulfill their needs. Those who are having problems with their sustenance, with their rizq, with their jobs, Ya Allah, grant them barakah and an increase in their barakah and their rizq, Ya Allah. Those who are suffering in so many parts of the world, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, in Yemen, in Bahrain, in Syria, in Nigeria, in Palestine, in Kashmir, in Burma, Ya Allah, hasten down from the oppressors and grant the mustazafin and the oppressed a speedy victory, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, we ask you to protect our ulama, our maraja, the waliya, faqih, the mujtahideen who are serving while the imam is in occultation. Grant them a long and healthy life in the service of Islam and the Ahlul Bayt. Protect them from the difficulties and the challenges and the dangers that are around them. We ask you, Ya Allah, bihaqqi hadha shahr al-Muharram, for the sake of this month of Muharram, to return our Mawla, Imam al-Hujja, Qa'im, back to us. Make us amongst the ashab and the ansar of the imam. And let us be able to see Zamana Dhuhur with our own eyes, inshaAllah. I will ask all the mu'mineen to get together and recite 5 times Amma Yujibul for all those who are ill, especially our young sister Ruqayya, and for all those who are ill, for our hajat to be accepted, for their shifa, inshaAllah, for the safety of the mu'mineen who are suffering, and for the protection and the safety of Imam Sahib al-Amr altogether. Bismillahir Rahim. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء 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 أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعا ويكشف السوء اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه كل مريض. For all the marhumin who are no longer with us, for their maghfirat, inshallah, for their barakah, if we can recite one surah Fatiha for them, preceded by a salawat upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Bismillah. من صلى على محمد وآل محمد.
أحسنتم مولانا. Thank you. أجركم الله. تقبل الله أعمالكم جميعا. Thank you, Brother Hadi. Inshallah, now we're going to be with the Latmiya, and we will conclude with this Latmiya for tonight, inshallah. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. أفلح من أعاد ثانية. ثالثة بأعلى الأصوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
على لسان علي الأكبر: إلى ما السفر يا نور البصر يا ثمار عمري يا علي الأكبر. إلى ما السفر يا نور البصر إلى ما السفر يا نور البصر يا ثمار عمري يا علي الأكبر يا عمري يا علي الأكبر. إلى ما السفر يا نور البصر، إلى ما السفر يا نور البصر، يا ثمار عمري يا علي الأكبر. يا ثمار عمري يا علي الأكبر. إلى ما السفر يا نور البصر، إلى ما السفر يا نور البصر، يا ثمار عمري يا علي الأكبر. يا ثمار عمري يا علي الأكبر. حملتك يا نور عيوني في أحشايا وفوق متوني، حملتك يا نور عيوني في أحشايا وفوق متوني، لأجلك ما نامت عيوني، لأجلك ما نامت عيوني، فوق مهدك في الليل أسهر. إلى ما السفر يا نور البصر، إلى ما السفر يا نور البصر، يا ثمار عمري يا علي الأكبر. يا ثمار عمري يا علي الأكبر. حملتك يا نور عيوني في أحشايا وفوق متوني، حملتك يا نور عيوني في أحشايا وفوق متوني، لأجلك ما نامت عيوني، لأجلك ما نامت عيوني، فوق مهدك في الليل أسهر. إلى ما السفر يا نور البصر، إلى ما السفر يا نور البصر، يا ثمار عمري يا علي الأكبر. يا ثمار عمري يا علي الأكبر. ضياء دربي ربيع قلبي، يا رأس مالي وكل كسبي، ضياء دربي ربيع قلبي، يا رأس مالي وكل كسبي، يا أفضل ما أعطاني ربي، يا أفضل ما أعطاني ربي، يا شبيه الرسول المطهر. إلى ما السفر يا نور البصر، إلى ما السفر يا نور البصر، يا ثمار عمري يا علي الأكبر. يا ثمار عمري يا علي الأكبر. كنت أراعيك وأناغيك وسط الليالي، عيني تداريك. كنت أراعيك وأناغيك وسط الليالي، عيني تداريك. تبكي فأناديك ما الذي يبكيك، تبكي فأناديك ما الذي يبكيك. قلبي بدمعك قد تفطر. إلى ما السفر يا نور البصر، إلى إلى السفر يا نور البصر يا ثمار عمري يا علي الأكبر يا ثمار عمري يا علي الأكبر ظننتك أن تسند ظهري لو جل خطبي أو طال عمري ظننتك أن تسند ظهري لو جل خطبي أو طال عمري والآن ليت ينطوي ذكري والآن ليت ينطوي ذكري قبل يومك في الترب أغبار إلى السفر يا نور البصر إلى السفر يا نور البصر يا ثمار عمري يا علي الأكبر يا ثمار عمري يا علي الأكبر صلوا على محمد وآل محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أحسنت. طيب الله أحسنت. أحسنتم.